Welcome everyone. Thanks for coming to the session entitled Master Artisans Roundtable. And thank you for your support of the Natchitoches NSU Folklife Festival. Once again, a wonderful event that we're having here today. Before we start, I'd like to, a few little announcements. My name is Dustin Fuquay. I'll be moderating the session today. It's filmed, it's taped, as y'all know. We have the release forms in your hands. I'd like to point out that we have some wonderful sponsors. I want to make sure that we acknowledge those folks. The New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Foundation, Louisiana Office of Cultural Development, Cane River National Heritage Area, the City of Natchitoches, Louisiana Feed Your Soul, Shreveport Regional Arts Council, State of Louisiana, Natchitoches Tourism, and the Louisiana Endowment for the Humanities. So thanks for the wonderful sponsors. And thanks for these folks to be here with us, these three wonderful artists. Y'all ready?
We're ready.
So this is going to be real informal, and all of you in the audience, you've been around these before. You know how this works. We're just going to have a nice conversation with these artists, and throughout the session, we'll turn it over to questions, and feel free. Very informal. Just raise your hand, and we'll ask away. So let's start off with some introductions. Sir, we'll start with you.
Brandon Cagle. I've been working. I make ceramic pottery. Mostly work with stoneware, clay. For the most part, I make functional wares because those are, well, I don't want to sell anything that's going to come out not food safe. Somebody messes with it and they get something that's not what I want to play with.
Okay.
So I mostly do food safe stuff, just functional wares again. But I will push the boundaries of what I make sometimes large vases, large bowls, just different things.
Cool.
And I guess that's me.
Nice. Yeah, welcome. Christy?
I'm Christy Benoit Castile. I've shuttle tatted for over 40 years. The last 13, I demonstrate all over the state. I do historical events. You can find me at a lot of historical state sites. It's important to pass on what we do. I go into what is your story. We all have a very unique story. And I'm trying to encourage the next generation to learn their story because we're losing that oral history. And I'm just passionate about connecting different artisans with events, whether you're traditional or you're an artist. So, because we're needed. So.
I'm Carrie McCormick. I'm the site manager at Fort Jessup and Rebel State Historic Sites for the Louisiana Office of State Parks. I just sat here and did the math. I have been doing this for 26 years because I started at 19 in my home state, doing this to help pay for college. And I've been doing it for over 20 years in the state of Louisiana when I came down here for grad school. But I do different demonstrations historically. Today I'm spinning and weaving, but we also do knitting. I do a lot of hand textile programs, cooking programs, just different actual traditional crafts that would have been found in areas in the 1800s is what we work on.
Yeah. Thank y'all for the intros. And we have three really neat art forms represented here. You got ceramics, tatting, and fiber, spinning. Just the things that you just don't walk around and see every day. I can't really think of anywhere that I can go in Natchitoches and buy off the shelf a hand-spun ceramic, a hand-thrown ceramic, or some of Christy's work or some of your work, So this is the kind of place that the festival is the kind of place that the venue that you can see this kind of work done. And this is just a really rare opportunity to be able to talk with artists and maybe ask you some questions. And I know I have some questions that I'd like to ask, but maybe before we go there, if you want to just kind of briefly, you started to talk about, some of your techniques and things. If you want to maybe each go a couple minutes about your techniques, something that you want to highlight.
For me, a lot of what I do is rooted in, the basics with some of my own styles put into it. You've got different aspects that every potter out there, every ceramic artisan will put forth that is their style. For me, sometimes it's some of the simple things like my handles and such for my mugs and other, vases and such. I try to relate it to the concept of nature wear, because that's my business, BC Nature Wear. It might sound overly simplistic, but sometimes it doesn't always work out. I try to twine my handles together with kind of coiled bits of clay, just tubes of clay that are solid. Don't know how else to put that.
Like snakes?
Yeah. But a lot of the times, they will not want to work right. So before the final result, there's a lot of room for error. Just getting them to dry right, stay attached to the vessel, especially in Louisiana where the weather fluctuates like no other.
Yeah.
And a lot of the styles are part of the craft for that. So,
Okay.
yeah.
And you like to make things that you can actually use, functional things.
Yeah.
Like you
Yeah.
mentioned you like to be able to eat off of it. You don't want to just put it on the shelf.
Yeah.
You want to be able to use
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah, I mean, if somebody wants to purchase something from me that is just about the aesthetic, that's fine. I focus my glazes on glaze is the top coating of ceramics so that it's food safe and by modern U.S. standards. But I try to how do I put this? Sorry. I try to make sure that it works out and isn't something that's going to cause health issues. Like, there are a lot of glazes out there, like raku firings, raku glazes. You've got some pit fire ceramics that are just not going to be food safe. They're super porous. They'll hold bacteria. Not fun. Not fun for food. Yeah.
So I started off, I shuttle tapped pretty much with cotton.
Hold on, Chrissy. What's tatting?
It's a way of making lace we can date it back to 1750.
Tatting.
Tatting, Tatting. It was all over Europe. It was across all social classes. Queen Victoria was an avid tatter, so she put it on the map for us. No machine can replicate it today. If you see filet crochet and you cut through it, it unravels. Tatting, we're making a knot. It's the same knot fishermen use for their nets called a half hitch. So it's a lot of muscle memory. If you cut through it, like I said, it doesn't unravel. It was very durable in the 1800s. They would take it off of pillowcases or clothing and reuse it again. And it was referred to as poor man's lace. And there's actually documentation of women, like potato famine in Ireland. The women would tat edging, and they were selling it to the women in England. They were helping their families survive. I've heard stories of different, like I said, I go all over. I'm from Lafayette, I'm from the Acadiana area, but I go pretty much like Brandon, where we're invited, and I get to hear stories. This lady was telling me about her great aunts and her great grandmother. They were widows, and they lived in Washington where the steamboat would turn around. And there was a boat that was like a general store, and they tatted edging, and he would barter with them for what they needed. So it's kind of like, that's kind of neat, you know. It wasn't just, like, it was a means to make a living. But I also tat with the Acadian brown cotton, the way Mr. Jerry has it spun. And I'm Acadian. My great-grandparents grew it. My mama picked it. My other great-grandmother did the tatting. So, yeah, I get to work with that. I'm learning how to do spinning. You never stop learning. We never stop growing. And I just like anything I can try to learn and really, yeah, you're connecting with those who came before us, you know, and taking pride in your work. I tell the school kids that when I go to Carrie's, you know, take pride in your work. Look at the back of this runner my great-grandmother made. The front looks just like the back, you know. So, yeah, I get to have fun.
I started with Louisiana State Parks in April of 2004. I was a grad student at LSU, and I needed a job for the summer semester. So I started as a tour guide, but the plantation home I started working at had an original kitchen building And one of the rooms that would have been the cold pantry had one of the original floor looms from the plantation, because originally they'd had a weaving building that housed 3 full-size floor looms and at least 21 spinning wheels, because for those who don't know, it takes 7 spinning wheels to provide enough thread for 1 full-sized floor loom. So historically, that's what you're working with if you're keeping a loom going on a plantation. So they had a whole weaving building that would have had enslaved people set aside doing that job. But we did demonstrations because the floor loom was 200 years old and still fully functional. So that's where I learned to weave, and I learned to spin because part of the weaving demonstration was showing how you got the thread to put on the loom. And so we started with wool. I learned on wool and cotton. And if you've never spun before or looked at wool roving and loose-ginned cotton separately, depending on both the breed of sheep or the species of cotton, the staple, which is the length of the fiber, can vary from 1/2 inch to 2 inches on sheep. And for cotton, it can vary from about 1/2 inch to 1 inch, maybe 1.5 inches if you are really lucky in the cotton you're growing. So you have different techniques for how fast you spin, how tight you set your tensions, so that your fibers, part of the process of spinning is that as the tension on the line turns, it causes the fibers to interlock together. So if your fibers are short, but you spin too fast, they do not have enough time to latch onto each other, and they will snap. It's just the opposite with longer fibers. If you spin it too loose, those fibers have too much time, and they'll twist and knot up on each other, and so they won't form a smooth thread, or they won't interlock well enough, and the thread will shred apart as you're spinning it. So it's a basis of what fibers you're working with and what type of material you're trying to create. And I got started with that about 2 years into my a year and a half into my state parks journey. So I've probably been doing this about 19 years with spinning, and weaving was first. So like today I brought my spinning wheel and then a small Dorothy loom that we're using at the park to make what I'm spinning on the wheel is getting put onto the loom, and we have a 203-year-old kitchen building at Fort Jessup, and I'm going to turn it into pot holders. Because I don't care what they say, I've killed about every 100% natural cotton fiber pot holder I bought in a store, and it didn't matter which store it came from, with my cast iron pots. So I'm hoping if I do it start to finish, maybe they'll last a little longer. So part of mine was like, it's Christy said with the what is your story is, my mom crocheted. My grandma knew how, but did not. My mom had 3 sisters. She was the oldest of 4. My grandma didn't have time to teach her, so she brought her a crochet hook and a book, and my mom took off from there. I can't crochet to save. I can make a chain, and if the book is old enough and the instructions are specific enough, maybe I can figure it out. But I learned to spin, and I taught myself to knit. So I actually, outside of work, spin my own yarn and then knit my own stuff because I find it soothing. But it's also something, as everyone's been saying, people don't do it anymore. But it's an art form that doesn't need to be lost because it's so important to show how we got our clothing originally. And spinning's been around for over 3,000 years. It was there. That's how you got fibers. You can spin bamboo, silk, and flax on a wheel just as easily as you can spin cotton and wool.
Great stories y'all got, and it's interesting to listen to how each of you have learned. It sounds like you had some family knowledge and you kind of took it on yourself and you learned it yourself, and same thing with you. But I'm curious, where did you get your impetus to start to do pottery?
Me is more education. I actually went here to NSU. I started with a bachelor's degree and worked my way up to a master's degree. I started in, I didn't even really know pottery was a thing in my bachelor's until I got into the art program. I actually went there for graphic arts. It was not my thing. Too many computer screens. But after some time, I realized I enjoyed pottery more than anything else that I did. I could actually see the final result. I could see the progress from making this very wonky cylinder to this really nice tall cylinder, and I'm like, wow. So y'all see this? You see this? You see this? I did these, and this is better. This is a lot better. And after my bachelor's degree, after I got my BFA, I came back, got my MA, and during that time, I really put in the effort to learn nothing but pottery. Everything about it, from different techniques of like historically common techniques, and even some more common ones these days. A lot of things have been taken out of practice somewhat. Historically, a lot of people would use kick wheels. They just have a rotating disc at the bottom and a type of a rod or kind of pulley system throughout that would turn the wheel. You kick the wheel a certain amount of times, you stop, and then it's got a regular speed that it goes for a good while, so it starts to slowly dissipate into. But these days, most wheels are going to be electric. They got a foot pedal. You just adjust it just like you would a modern day sewing machine or a car. I mean, foot pedal. But there are a lot of techniques. Earlier I mentioned raku, I mentioned pit fire, you've got gas fire kilns, you've got electric and wood burning kilns, different than pit fire, but almost similar. Pit fire, you're not likely to get something that's food safe, but in a wood fire kiln you are, so there's a huge difference there. I know I keep talking about food safety, but that's my thing. So it just comes down to all the techniques and such that come together, and most of what I've learned is through my education here at NSU. A lot of my like practical standpoints have come from watching videos and other such, learn about some historical stuff. Find a good way to put that, but there are lots of videos online about making pottery, but if you're just trying to learn pottery, you can't watch a video and say that you're a master. You can't just watch a video and recreate what you see instantaneously. That is not a thing. You can't see how much pressure they're putting with their hands. You can't see how elegantly or delicately they're actually moving their fingers near the certain aspects of it, especially the rims and certain pieces. So it takes a lot of practice and practical experience with pottery to learn it. If anybody wants to get into it, I recommend classes. It's an expensive hobby.
Sounds like it. Well, so the way I think about, we're at this festival and we're talking about so many different trades, historic artists like these, and we have the heritage factor where we can go and we learn be an apprentice type model where you learn from a master and someone trains you. You did it to where you got this in academia. You went to school and you learned it. Now, I would think that would not be as easy with the fiber arts like you ladies do, right?
Right.
It doesn't seem like there's a lot of coursework out there for tatting or for spinning. Is that right?
I have every other year, I believe it is, Dr. Parr in her textiles class, she's had me come out and demonstrate spinning for her because they don't have anyone there's not a class on spinning on campus. She's come out or brought her classes to shuttle tatting workshops. Right. Christy has done it for Jessup. It is in many ways fiber arts outside of rugs and tapestry weaving and clothing. A lot of clothing work, quilting. These are, when we say fiber arts, that's what people think of. They think of quilts, they think of clothing pieces, fashion. They think of fiber arts like tapestries, embroidery, things like that. When we talk about fiber arts, we're talking about those things, but also spinning, Christy's tatting, bobbin lace. I do bobbin lace. Christy's been teaching herself bobbin lace. Right. I learned from a Danish lady whose husband was a soldier she met during World War II. When he married her and brought her home to America, that's how she supplemented her income, as she taught people bobbin lace, and she taught me at a craft festival. That's how a lot of these older crafts are getting passed around. You're either learning it in a historic context like I did for state parks to do with my work, or you're going to historic sites, and if they have someone there that knows the craft, or festivals that know the craft and have the time to take to show you, or are doing a program about it where you can get your hands on it, that's how these kind of crafts are being passed around. It's a lot more like he was saying about get your hands on it. I spin barefoot because I can tell the tension of any spinning wheel I'm on between the footman to the wheel and how the tension's set better with my feet bare than trying to feel it through a rubber-soled shoe. So if I'm spinning, I can almost guarantee you I take my shoes off, and it does not matter where I am or whose spinning wheel I'm using, because it's easier that way.
You make a great point, about the way she mentioned, the university is going to the park to ask for her help to do this kind of, how special is that? And I see that all the time, not just in your arts, but in so many other things. It's like, and the way you said it, we're learning how to do this for work, and we end up becoming the de facto go-tos for that kind of skill. There's something to be said about that, it's underrepresented.
A lot of the spinners I know I learned spinning and natural dyeing from were reenactors at the parks I worked at, and they're no longer with us. So it's, it's that sort of, you're learning it hands-on and oral tradition, as I know you know, and it's becoming where you're becoming that person who's now teaching the next group of people doing it, because no one else knows it. It's not out there as a standard thing.
Correct. Yeah. Because they don't have sewing or shop class in most of your schools anymore.
Right.
I grew up 7th grade on, I could take home ag.
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 Yeah.
So we're seeing a lot of, I go to a lot to her site. I also go to Port Allen, the museum there, West Baton Rouge Museum. Anytime they call and they want me to come out and help them with a program, I come out and help them, because there's not a lot of us. And we're trying to get more people like, hey, we need you. But what's hard is a lot of the sites, whether it's a state site or a historical museum, a lot of them, even your festivals, because we've done festivals together. I go between the artists, where I'm a paid vendor as an artist, but then I go to her sites. We've done festivals together. They don't have travel stipends. We don't have money, but you're going to sell what you make. Look, you know how many I go to, and I'm lucky to cover gas, right?
Yeah.
So it's hard for us to attract people that we know do this, because they're like, I don't want to lose money. So I'm always trying to talk people like, come on, we can carpool. But I'm finding that there's a lot like 10 to 15-year-olds that show up at your site, and when I go to Port Allen. So we're starting to get, I'm seeing young girls that are wanting to learn, and we're so excited to pass that on, It's so fulfilling to take, you're using your pottery clay, or you're using thread. You're taking this and then you're making something beautiful and something very unique, one of a kind. I mean, you can't do that playing a video game on your phone, So I just think we need to, that's my big thing with the kids. Use your hands, put that down, draw, woodworking,
And I've noticed more, and Christy talked about it, how she learned shuttle tatting and who in her family did it and who didn't. And I've learned, especially like she said, we have 10 to 15-year-olds coming out to our tea and I do a tea and textile program once a month, where we have a pot of tea and we talk about some kind of fiber textile, whether it's the clothing itself, how to make it, different things. Like next month is rag rug making. That's what we're doing at Fort Jessup in August. We're going to make rag rugs, and I'm going to talk about braiding them, how to get the threads together, weaving them, your pick, but we're going to talk about rag rugs, because that was a staple for floor coverings in the 1800s, especially for regular everyday people on the frontier. But the reason I say that is that age group, a lot of them are like, well, I know my grandma did it, but my mom never learned. It's like, my mom crocheted, my mom taught me to sew. I honestly cannot remember a time I did not know how to sew. But I didn't find out till I was in college, and my grandma had passed away when I was 18 years old. My grandma knew how to make hats because she had to take a millinery class, and her mama knew how to make them too because she'd taken it in high school. And my grandma hated doing it, but my mom was like, she would have taught you if she knew you wanted to. She hated it, but she'd have given you the basics. I'm like, well, we're about 4 years too late for me to learn. But I would have loved to have known it when I was younger, because that's a skill that, since I do my own historic clothing, I would have loved to know how to make historic hats. But it's skipped a generation in the middle because of, like, my grandma didn't have time to teach my mom to crochet because she had 4 kids. So she didn't have time to pass that one on to my mom either. But she taught her how to sew and the basics. And then my mom learned the rest from her grandmas, which would have been my great-grandmothers. So it's that interesting generational gap sometimes where life happens in different ways, and then younger kids are going, oh, but I do want to know how to do that. You said grandma made this over here, why don't you know how to make it? And I get a lot of moms who are like, so her grandma used to do this, I can't do it, we're coming out here, Miss Carrie, and we expect you to teach us how to do it. I said, okay, y'all come right on out, that's how we're going to learn.
We have a grandmother that brings one granddaughter when I do the tatting, and she brings the other granddaughter for hand embroidery at Fort Jessup. And she's on her phone, where can I order her some more stuff? And she's buying it. She says, this is what I give them for Christmas and birthdays. And we drink a cup of tea, and we need more of that.
That's
we
such
really
a good
do.
fostering environment for you, when you're trying to teach somebody. That's the kind of stuff that we need, you know. When we're
Right.
we're trying to learn, that's the kind of environment we need, you know. How many times have we gone to places and, you know, we're going to do a workshop and and you're sitting at
Right.
desks and it's so stuffy and frumpy. No, you need that type of environment that you're talking about,
Right.
creating that safe place and that place where we can just talk about anything. That's great.
It's like going, like I grew up, you went to your great-grandmother's on Sundays for Sunday dinner. We don't do that anymore. You know, you knew all the relatives, all the cousins. And so when I go to Carrie's site, it's kind of like stepping back and you're going to Momo's, you know. We're not that old. But it's
works,
like
so.
the phones are down, and it's just what we did before we had the electronics, you know. Even when I go to Port Allen, they did a camp. I went and helped Linda. Linda's outside doing the clothes washing. She does a lot like we do, you know. And it's seeing these kids doing the corn husk dolls, and they're all in, you know, or it's just, I don't know, they've done like the bussiage, and they try to get the kids to do it for the week. And they've done it, I think, 30 years, 20 years. So the ones that started off in first grade did the camp, they became counselors. They hired part-time, and some of them are full-time workers now at that West Baton Rouge Museum in Port Allen.
Oh, cool.
And so it's neat to see, like, this is a living history museum. Like,
Yeah.
they are on it, and they're great with what they do.
It's
you
like
know.
a historic trades incubator.
It is. It really, really is.
An incubator system.
They have a retired carpenter, and he does like the tongue and groove and the wooden pegs. They have it looks old, but it's a barn they built to look old, and there's 4 rooms. So it's Miss Linda's textile room with her looms and everything, and then you have the woodworker and you have the blacksmith. And they do behind the barn door the first Sunday of the month. And if she's not there, I'll go over and do it. And there's some kids in the neighborhood that ride their bikes, and he's showing them how to do tongue and groove and use the wooden dolls. He's like, yeah, they come out covered in like carpenter's glue one time. But they're not on the street getting in trouble. They're building a birdhouse, and that's what we do, you know. That's a big part of it. And it's getting your hands dirty and, yeah, making it fun.
Did you have another point to make before we go to questions?
Well, yes, actually. So a while ago, she's mentioned using, when she was barefoot, she could feel the difference in the tension. One thing that I do whenever I'm on the pottery wheel is sometimes I'll just close my eyes and focus on what my hands feel rather than what I see. Because your hands are going to tell you how thick the clay is. Your eyes are going to tell you how thick the top of it is, not everywhere else. Whenever you're throwing, you're pulling up the walls, you're lifting them. The usual method is to like put pressure in one spot and pressure in another, and you can kind of feel the clay that runs between your fingers, just that ever so slight little amount. And you can get a better sense of that one way I like to put it is, imagine that you are blind. Blind people can see with their fingers. They can pretty much get a good depiction of something just from the way something feels, and they can read text based on the braille and such like that. But you get a good feel on the pottery wheel just from the feel of the clay, how thick it is and other such. So your eyes will betray you, where an actual hands-on experience will not. So yes, thank you for.
Very cool. Well, before we go to questions, just want to make an announcement, an acknowledgement that we have one of the panelists here is being honored today. The Louisiana Folklife Center has a program called the Louisiana Hall of Master Folk Artists, and today Christy Castile is going to be inducted. So I want to congratulate you there, Christy. It's a good feeling, I bet, to, when you've been doing all this work and learn from the old people, learn from your family.
Yeah.
You've taught so many people and to be recognized. So how cool.
I always talk to Dusty because he learned from John Colson. I met John Colson in Eunice for a festival 15 years ago. My dad worked for the Jean Lafitte Center, and it got out. I did shuttle tatting, and they had a horseshoe of somebody spinning and weaving in the quilts, and it spread like wildfire, and they cornered me because we brought our sons to live in history, and I didn't think that was something I needed to do, and I got cornered, and Mr. John Colson and Miss Charlene and Miss Bursa got my number, and they called me for 6 months, once a week. We need you out here next year. We need you. And Mr. Colson would not stop. I love Mr. Colson. And the next year I was set up next to him because in the 70s, good luck learning the history. But 15 years ago, I'm like, let me see. And I was able to actually start connecting. And Georgia Scheitz, I consider her the tatting queen of America. And I was able to get in touch with her. And she was a wealth of information on the true, because history depends on who wrote it. So it's important to have accurate history. But yeah, so I'd always see Mr. Colson when we get here for the festival. So we miss him. Dusty and I miss him. But he's the reason I'm here. And they were what I guess we're trying to do. We need younger people, because Miss Bursa, she can't do quilts. Miss Charlene no longer can spin and do the spinning and the weaving. And they saw that 15 years ago when I walked through. We need you. And I was like, okay. I had a couple of little bookmarks I put out, and I'm like, this is fun. And Mr. Colson started making phone calls, and he's like, you're coming with me here, here, and here. And then I met Carrie, and okay, I need a historical dress. I need it to be historically accurate. And so when I go to Fort Jessup, or I was at Magnolia Mound in Baton Rouge at Christmas, I learned the history of the family that lived there and see if someone did tatting. When I was at Melrose, Cammie Henry was a tatter, come to find out. So I tried, when I do historical, is to tie in the history. So I'm really having fun, It's been fun for me,
Well, congrats to you for today.
So, but I'm here because of other people.
Want to open it up for questions. If anybody has any questions for these wonderful artists, I feel like they're if you need a dream team for the historic homestead, this is the folks that I want on my team here. So, any questions?
Well, they are teaching a lot of these folk traditions in the school systems that I teach in the art classes.
Oh, wow.
Miss Pope is actually here.
Which school district, which area?
She does textiles, and she does a little bit of oil painting. She works with clay, so she does little units on all that, and the history of it.
That's great.
That is excellent.
Nice.
She had some little different tests, so they are doing it there.
Right.
Also, and as far as music goes, they do the same thing also. They're starting to bring in the different folk instruments.
That sounds great.
I do that in my classroom.
Well, I'm from Lafayette, so it's kind of like.
I brought up the little miniature, the little accordions, but
Right.
I let them play that, and I do the guitar, piano and everything.
I
Washboard.
I find a lot, like in the Lafayette area, it's like pulling teeth for me to do something. It's the music, it's the food, and it's the language.
Right.
And then when it gets to us, it's like they don't know what to do with us. I grew up going to Festival Acadienne from the beginning. That's where I saw, because my great-grandmother tatted, and she had 2 sons. So my mom could not figure it out. My great-grandmother died when I was 2 weeks old, but I had all her tatting, her beautiful hand embroidery work, her filet crochet, and I could not do tatting in the 70s. And we went to Festival Acadienne when I was 9 because they had that big tent with all the demonstrators. And we would go for that. And there was a lady from out of state. Her husband was transferred to Lafayette because of the oil. And I watched her for 3 days. And my dad talked her into letting me take the workshop. And I was tatting in 30 minutes. So I've been tatting that long, you know. But it's like I come up to Natchitoches. I go all over the state, you know. And it's like, I want to do this in my own backyard. And it's just hard. It's getting people to understand that.
There's still a lot of traditional things you'll see around, even around Louisiana Grand Parish and Royals. My mom, she's from Miami, which is.
Oh, yeah, that's not far from me.
She still does all. She can crochet. She actually learned from her next door neighbor, which
Right.
crocheted when she was 7. That was 50 years ago. My mom still speaks Cajun French, you know, to
Right.
I teach Cajun French to my music students too. I got a little Cajun coloring book, and we'll go through it.
That's great.
We try to hit a little highlights and everything like
No, because it's important.
I think it's.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I would say I think it's wonderful that your education system is having all of those in there. Like they're putting forth the effort. Whenever I grew up, I didn't have anything in my high school and anywhere. Like they did not offer it. They kept downsizing. Now I'm from a small area, but still.
Yeah.
Parish you're from and what district?
Yeah.
Alexandria.
Yeah.
It's over there. They let us kind of free range. We can put what we want in there, you know, so we cover the checks. And everything. I do a lot of that just after school too. We do a lot of after school stuff. Well, go ahead.
My question is for you. If you do your clay with a certain technique and you use, let's say you make 6 of them, but you put one in a gas kiln and one in this kind of kit, are you going to get different kind of
I like that question. I like that question. Okay. So as far as a bisque, okay, there's 2 main firing types. You've got a bisque and a glaze. Bisque is changing clay, bone-dry clay to ceramic. If you do that one into these different firing types, you're not likely to get much difference. But the glaze firing, it comes next. The glazes will change drastically depending on the temperature and the environment that they're heated in. When it comes to an electric kilns, in my personal experience, you're going to get some more vibrant colors than you will a gas kiln. And a gas kiln is going to give you a different effect than a wood fire kiln. But in a wood fire kiln, you can add certain things like large amounts of salts and other things to just drastically change what happens inside the kiln. You've got usually for an electric kiln, you'll have oxidation environments, which is what really brings out a lot of those colors. The only struggle you're going to find is something like reds. Red glazes you're more likely to get in a gas kiln. Gas kiln is a reduction, not an oxidation. There are some people who will modify their kilns in some way, some form or fashion to get an oxidation out of them, but a lot of times you're going to find a reduction, and there are different types of reduction firings. Getting a beautiful, magnificent looking bold red is tough, but there are potters out there who can do that in a gas kiln but cannot get that effect in an electric kiln. And then you've got crazy effects from wood fire. Go ahead. It's the environment. It's everything going on in there, because when we talk about wood fire kilns have tons of ash going around. They've got literal exposure to fire, not just red hot heat. They got actual fire that will touch them, because people have to constantly feed into a big wood kiln. I'm talking tunnel vaults from the back of this room to this wall. Maybe half the width, but big kilns full of just loading in logs after logs after logs just to pump up the heat, because it's got to reach anywhere from 2,200 degrees to 2,300 degrees Fahrenheit. It's somewhere in the 1,200 and 1,250 Celsius. We don't do those here.
Wear special things, to protect you from that kind of heat, or?
For the most part, you want to wear some safety leathers, personal protective equipment that's suited for high temperatures. Maybe welding equipment. You've got some. If you do aluminum pours and such, you might want to wear equipment like that. It's just real thick, mostly non-flammable options, because the heats are insane. I mean, this is going to sound a bit rough, but anywhere over 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit is going to basically get rid of anything organic. We are organic. So whenever you push 1,900 for a bisque fire, or 2,200, 2,300 for glaze fires, it's a lot, and it will change. It will. You do need some safety equipment for different things. Yeah.
Any other questions? Almost out of time. Oh. Yes, ma'am.
I'm the executive director of the Division of the Arts, and I was wondering if you guys were familiar with specifically you two, if you were familiar with our passing it on workshops, because I do think it's so important that we pass along these cultural traditions and histories, so we don't have those gaps like you were talking about.
I'd love to talk to you and find out more about it, because I'm always looking.
Because I was not aware.
To help support that. And then my question is, as you guys are kind of organically finding these ways to connect with youth, what support might you think that our office could provide?
I haven't found a list. Like, there's no updated list where somebody can go and find us.
That's actually a really good
The only way
point.
we're finding each other is if they come to our festival. I have a list I keep because I'm asked all the time. The list is very old. We don't have a current list.
It's like if I have a program and my usual blacksmith can't make it because they have something else on their table. There's nothing I can reach out to if I don't know another reenactor that does it, or another person who does an event that has their list. Like, I have my own list, other people have their list. We don't have a master list anywhere. I call Christy, I'm like, hey, so Marty can't come, so-and-so can't come. Do you have any other blacksmiths? Miss Linda says Ben isn't available. Do you have any other blacksmiths you know? Because I am running low on blacksmiths right now. Of the 4 I know, they're not free that weekend, or somebody's sick, or this has happened.
And I have like festivals, like I go all over the state, and they're like, I went to talk to Dusty because somebody's like, hey, we need bousillage guy. And I'm like, I know the person. Or a filet, it's Dusty. Or a potter, But when you get into what we do, the historical, the traditional, it's getting smaller.
And even in state parks, we have lost a lot of one of them sitting in here. A lot of the interpretive rangers and interpretive craftspeople who did a lot of these things, they've retired, or they've transferred to other park systems, or they're not doing that anymore, and their new job doesn't allow them to have time to go out to reenactments or things like that. And so we don't have, like we used to in the pool of state parks people have a lot of these crafts people available too. Well, we have less of those. And so you can't just call up another site and be like, hey, is so-and-so free because I need someone who can do this weekend.
Right.
Because they're not there anymore.
Are you at Fort Jessup or?
Yes, ma'am. I manage Fort Jessup, so yes, ma'am.
But I'd love to, I would love to get together with you, yes.
Got 1 minute, guys.
Sorry. Working with a developer on a website called Culturalist. And it's been described as LinkedIn for the arts. And so
That's what we
you
need.
search
Yes.
artists by
We need that.
discipline, and we're still developing it. There's no reason why craft traditions like yours can't be.
I think
on there
everybody
and
that's here
catalog.
would love that.
Yeah.
They would love that. So,
Well, that was thank you for that great offer to help these folks.
look,
And-
I've been looking and looking and looking and looking. I've done this
very
13
good
years,
thing.
and I realized 12 years ago this was lacking. And everyone I talked to was like, it's here. And I'm like, no, it's old. It's not updated.
It's like, I know we have 3 different spinners here. I'm spinning something particular. I'm doing Acadian brown cotton. Miss Tammy's here. I know she's doing cotton. Miss Janet, I believe, is doing wool. But I have taught myself to spin most things, like cotton and wool and everything else. But I've discovered in the pool of reenactors who spin, you have a group that spins cotton and you have a group that spins wool. And then there the twain meets in the middle. And I get people that are like, do you know anyone else that does both? And I'm like, I would be the end of your bus stop right here, because everyone spins one or the other, not because of personal preference. I didn't get the joy of having personal preference because I worked for state parks and I had to learn to spin both of them. And so there's a lot of crafts people that are like that, where you're getting down to, there are people that do one type of this and there are people that do one type of that, but finding people who are down the middle and can help you in both areas are becoming harder to come by. Like Christy's been teaching herself needle tatting and then bobbin lace,
Bobbin
because
lace.
a lot of those lace making traditions, shuttle tatting, needle tatting, bobbin lace,
Right.
there's not someone who can do all of it, but you're getting, as more younger people are becoming interested, you're getting more of a demand for each type. So having someone who can do more than one is becoming important as well.
Well, that'll have to be a good spot for us to call it.
Yeah.
We got our time in the back. Those apologies there. But hey, thanks to the wonderful audience. Thanks for the great questions. And let's give a hand for our panelists here.